What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazique, aka UniqueMazique, the hardest working man in sports and gaming. And we're back with another episode of Add Me Bro. And I got my man with me, Nelson Blake II. What's up, bro?
How's it going, man? Welcome to the Add Me Bro audience. I'm glad you guys have been hitting us up with the feedback. Much appreciated. Looking forward to today's show. What you
Definitely. Absolutely. Well, first of all, let's take care of some business. You guys at the bottom of the screen, make sure you take note of the Twitter handle for the At Me Bro Show. It is At Me Bro Show. And don't forget to leave a like as well as to subscribe to the channel. We're still on that mission to get 10,000 cumulative views, and that will then spawn an At Me Bro Show YouTube channel on its own. So that's our goal. But let's jump right into the first topic, which is actually, I don't know what it is. All I know is that Book said he needs some room. So he needs some room to get loose. So I'm gonna step back and let him get loose.
Now, I don't think our older viewers are gonna have a problem with this, but I can sympathize with some of our younger viewers who might just not understand, right? Because when I came up, I had never seen Bill Russell dribble a basketball before, right? I saw Wilt on footage from when he was older. I came up at the very tail end of Kareem's career, but they were still showing the fresh highlights of his slightly younger days. And Kareem was great for so long that you could tell Kareem was Kareem, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can understand what it's like when we jump into these discussions about the greatest of all time. And people like, how dare you skip over Bill Russell? He got 11 rings. Now, the joke about it was him and a bunch of chain smokers playing against 7 other teams. Valid discussion at the league was very different. So you can't just look at something like a counting number. When we talk about the greatest and stuff like that, we tend to mean somebody who was the best at what they did. My brother always comes up with that discussion. There's a difference between the greatest of all time and the best of all time. This long intro is to say, y'all need to stop comparing people to Michael Jordan. Now, if you want to compare their games and say this guy did this like Mike or he's Michael Jordan-esque in this kind of way, that's fine. But once you start talking about people better than Michael Jordan, stop. Ain't nobody better than Michael Jordan, especially not a guard. Chris Paul said James Harden was the best offensive player he ever seen. That's just a lie. That's just a lie. Chris Paul ain't old enough to have missed all of Michael Jordan's playing career. He saw some of it. And Michael Jordan is hands down much better than James Harden. When Michael Jordan was the best player on the planet, he was the best professional athlete doing anything of any kind. He wasn't just the greatest at basketball. He was the greatest at anything. There was people drawing comics like, man, I wish I was good at drawing as Michael Jordan is at basketball. Like, y'all don't understand. It was not close. And with the rules, and people want to compare like efficiency numbers and shooting percentages, the league was super duper different. The first form of defense against Michael Jordan was literally to flagrant foul him every time he went to the basket. That was how they quote unquote slowed him down. There's no context for a direct comparison. James Harden is not even the best offensive player in the league right now. I don't even know if he's the top 4. Off the top of my head, I don't know if he's a top 4 offensive player in the league. He's 4 or 5, maybe, right? Stop it. Stop it. He ain't. He is not as good as Michael Jordan. It is not close. It's not even close.
Here's the thing. I agree with you on this particular subject, like specific subject, but I don't necessarily agree that anybody should be protected from having their all-time greatness challenged.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
The thing I want to specify here is that Michael Jordan was the best, unquestionably, during his reign of terror over the NBA.
Yes.
In fact, people called him the best before he started winning championships. People don't understand that. His team was so trash, and this is something that needs to be said. The Eastern Conference in particular was so great when Michael Jordan was young in the league. Boston, Detroit, even Atlanta. You're talking about the Sixers, like high level teams.
Cleveland.
But when we talk about Boston, Detroit, and the Sixers championship teams, guys with championship level talent on their teams, right? So it was very difficult for him with that team to win. And people look at playoff success before them, but even in that moment, everybody was terrified that if he got any good players on his team, it was over. And he got a couple of good players on his team, and it was over, right? But here's the thing that I want to stress. It's okay to ask about LeBron James versus Michael Jordan in some sense, to ask the question, because LeBron James was widely considered the best player in the league. When someone is not hands down above and beyond the best in the league, that automatically disqualifies them from the Michael Jordan comparison, because Michael Jordan was hands down, no discussion, the best player. The second best player in the league was so far below Michael Jordan that it wasn't even funny. You know what I'm saying? So with James Harden, who's in the mix amongst some of the best players in the league, no, he's not better than Michael Jordan. And when it comes to offense, Michael Jordan's offense was honestly so outstanding and ridiculous that people thought it was different than just regular basketball. And that needs to be understood if you didn't grow up watching Michael Jordan. I'm not exaggerating. And I'm a Knicks fan. So Michael Jordan's greatness caused me a great deal of pain when I was young.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I'm speaking from somebody who literally watched, I would say 85 to 90% of every game Michael Jordan ever played. But I mean, before he went to Washington, I saw less then. Yeah. But I literally saw 85 to 90% of every game that he ever played in his career. So I am a firsthand witness of his greatness, right? And there was no one close at the time. There was no one. The game is different now, and all we can really do is kind of speculate as to what Mike would be in this league now. I mean, in some ways, there's no reason not to know, right?
Yes.
In some way, in terms of the no hand checking and just the leniency that you get on offense now. And
real quick, people think, and I need to interrupt you here.
Yeah.
You made a point that needs to be discussed. And I apologize for the interruption. How he going at me, bro? Usually I let Brian say all his crazy stuff, hang himself, but I just come in and be like, that's wrong, and y'all know it. And we move on to the next topic. But here, you brought up an excellent point, and I have to give that point some room to breathe.
Yeah.
People compare and say there's no way to know. That's not always true. I think when it comes to teams and how teams are built, there's no way to know, because you're talking about guys literally growing up differently, right? Mm-hmm. A young big man who's going to enter the league this year grew up being trained differently than Bill Russell. That's not at all a fair comparison. But in some cases, there's enough overlap that you can see it. And so Michael Jordan to Kobe Bryant to LeBron James today, it's not that far. We saw Michael play Kobe a decent amount to know how close their talent level was overall. And the truth of the matter is, in his absolute peak, Kobe Bryant was a little closer to Michael Jordan than people like to say. But you could see the talent level. You saw them play each other. You can see what it was like. Michael Jordan was better than Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant was close enough to Michael Jordan to be top 10 greatest player of all time, inarguably. In some people's list, top 5, top 7. Depends on who you talk to, right? Mm-hmm. So we've seen Kobe play against almost every good young player right now. Kobe beat Steph Curry in the playoffs. He beat Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? We've seen him head-to-head with LeBron James over and over and over again. So we can see the transitive properties. And the last thing I add to that is people don't realize that behind the scenes, a 48-year-old Michael Jordan was beating all of the rookies on his team one-on-one in practice. Like, he was still better than them 10 years after retirement. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like comparing Bill Russell to Anthony Davis. It's not the same exact thing.
Well, I mean, I guess my thing is, like I said, with him, there are things that you can tell, right? There are things like, in terms of the amount of space that is allowed now, the lack of physical contact that is allowed with an offensive player. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that if you allow Michael Jordan to have that much more freedom offensively, the numbers increase. That, I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? So it's easy to say, and I think it's a pretty fair assessment to say, hey, if you let Mike play in this time, he's an even more effective offensive player. Even if the only question about Mike is how does he transition as a three-point shooter, because he was never a great three-point shooter percentage-wise, although in the 95-96 season, he shot over 40% from three-point range.
Right.
So there is some precedence there to say.
And also, when it comes to three-point shooting, your free throw shooting tends to be somewhat indicative of your ability to grow into a three-point shooter.
There's some aberrations there. There's some outliers there that isn't consistent with, but for the most part, yes. And the thing of it is that Mike was such a good fundamental shooter. Like the fundamentals of his jump shot, the structure of his shot, the release time, the whole, it was too fundamentally correct to assume that if he had and then overall the talent for shooting the basketball
and the talent for learning skills.
Yes, it was too high to assume that he couldn't become at least a 37-38% three-point shooter if that's the part of the game that he applied. And he's also a very high IQ basketball
extremely
player.
High IQ.
So Mike was not going to take bad shots.
No,
he wasn't, because we talk a lot about how Kobe took a lot of bad shots, and Kobe did take a lot of bad shots.
Mm-hmm.
But Mike's shots didn't routinely look like Kobe's, because Mike had a way of beating a double and a triple team in a way where when he let it go, you were like, man, he's kind of open now.
Well, Michael, there's three things with Michael that are very different than Kobe. And I think these are the three things that essentially made him a better player for most of his career. Well, there's a fourth thing. I'll name all four. Number one, Michael Jordan was an absolute freak athlete. Yes. Kobe was an elite athlete overall in the league, but he wasn't in that 0.0001% of historic athletes, right? Vince Carter jumped higher than Kobe. There were people stronger than Kobe. Kobe had an excellent overall mix of athleticism, but he wasn't like Michael Jordan, where Michael Jordan was basically doing stuff we'd never, ever seen before. And if you look at the old footage, there's still stuff that you haven't seen since that Michael Jordan has done. And we like to categorize things in terms of strength, speed, jumping ability. But the truth of the matter is, we don't know everything about the human body. So some of these things, we just can't explain the way they look and how plays get made. And Michael Jordan has a lot of unexplainable phenomenon where I'm like, I don't even know what I would call that, but he's the only person who does that, right? So and a lot of times you can look at it, often great leapers aren't great dunkers in the NBA because it requires other athletic and mental skills to put you in position to dunk on people, right? So a guy like Vince Carter is actually more rare than you think. Vince Carter was an excellent dunk contest dunker. He was an excellent outright leaper, and he was an excellent in-game dunk on you dunker.
Yes.
Dunk in traffic dunker. That's not common. Michael Jordan was the total package in that way. The other thing that Michael Jordan had, again, going with his freak athleticism, but a separate category, was very, very large hands.
Yes. That's very big. That's a very, very, very
huge advantage. Part. Kobe has average hands, right? Mm-hmm. Michael has extraordinarily large hands and strength in those hands, which allowed him to actually do things that Kobe Bryant physically couldn't do. If Kobe Bryant simply jumped as high as Michael Jordan and had the same size hands, he would be that much closer to Michael Jordan. Mm-hmm. The third thing, which I think is the most important, is a quality that I ascribe to Dwayne Wade that Kobe did not have, and that's the instinct. Michael Jordan had an animal-like instinct for where to be on the court, how to move his body, how to create space with a defender. Kobe did that all intellectually. Kobe would scientifically break down what he needed to do, learn it step by step, and then execute it over and over and get to a spot where it would always work. And you'll hear every defender say this about Kobe. If you let him get to his spot, you were dead. There was nothing you could do about it. And he spent the whole game getting to his spots. Michael Jordan created space wherever he was and just saw the gaps. He knew if you moved your hips this way, it was time for him to go that way. And he had such great athleticism that once he gained a fraction of an advantage, it exploded into a wide advantage. Dwayne Wade had the same quality. Dwayne Wade could just make plays that people his size aren't supposed to make because Dwayne Wade just knew where to be. I've always said he had much better instincts than Kobe, but Kobe was a better scientist than Dwayne Wade. And then the last thing is health. Michael Jordan, similar to LeBron James, basically never got injured. He had one really big injury for 1 year. Yeah. He had an ankle, I believe it was, or
broke his foot.
Broke his foot. And he was basically out for a whole season. Outside of that, basically never hurt. Mm-hmm. Same thing like LeBron James. Kobe Bryant, and this is my argument for Kobe Bryant that I think people underestimate him. Fully healthy Kobe Bryant didn't last that long. He started taking massive injuries after during the Tom Janovich years on up, and he took serious finger, wrist injuries that took his shooting down. But if you look at the small window of peak Kobe Bryant, it was actually really, really astonishing when he had everything, the athleticism, the skill, but his team was so bad that we didn't get to see it play out the way we should have, because they were, quite frankly, I think, using him to sell tickets while they were saving money for the future. Yeah. So Michael had the health that allowed him to stay at peak Michael for a very, very long time. You add in a couple of ankle injuries and a hamstring and all this other stuff, and he starts to look a little bit less like what he actually was. But everything came together for Michael.
And the thing of it was Mike had the nagging injuries. Mike had really bad feet. He had tendonitis in his knees, but he never had the catastrophic gotta get surgery type of injuries, except for the broken foot. I will say this. I slightly disagree about Kobe's athleticism. Kobe did some things on the floor that were definitely elite level athleticism. And I'm talking about NBA elite athleticism. I'm talking about, I don't know how many other people that I've ever seen could do this particular singular specific athletic feat. So I would still probably give Mike a slight edge in athleticism. Most of it would be because of physical strength. But in turn, and I think that off of first step, I think Mike's first step was quicker. Mike's first step was something that was not even of the world. I mean, it was phenomenal. That initial quickness, that initial burst, and then on top of that, once like about 3 to 4 years in, when he got the shoulders and he got the physical strength to the point where not only do I have the first step, but I got the shoulder too. And if you hit the back of that shoulder, it's a wrap. It's done. You know, also the hang time. The hang time.
Ridiculous.
The hang time was.
They say is a myth.
Yeah, no,
it wasn't no myth.
I watched it every night. The hang time was extraordinarily important. It wasn't just for show, because Mike would literally jump and hang for a second or so longer than the defender and be open before he hit the ground.
That was the old story. If people haven't seen Michael Jordan or weren't around at that time, the story was he would jump, wait for you to drop, and then shoot. Which is why he was always open. That's not the entire story, but it's definitely a significant part.
It's similar. Yeah. I mean, he would literally do that. Like I saw it so many times I can't even count. Like he would drive, somebody would play decent defense. The guy's there, and he'd jump, and then the guy's hand would be here at first, and then the guy comes down a little bit, and as soon as he comes down a little bit, and to the ability to shoot shots from distance while or after moving the ball.
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody with that skill level. You know, because most people, they go up, and wherever they go up is where it's going to be released. They got to release it in a similar slot. Mike would jump, and we're talking about 15 footers. He would jump here, move the ball here, let it go here. I mean, just and while you're in the air, you know, so it was different. It was just different. So
okay, to address your point real quick before we move to the next topic, Kobe's athleticism, like I said, was elite, in terms of overall NBA stuff, but among the elite, you got like Zion Williamson, LeBron James, Michael Jordan. From what I hear and I've seen, Wilt Chamberlain. I don't think Kobe's in that category, is what I'm saying. Yeah, and I do think it makes a difference. I do think it makes a difference that when you're in that category.
And I agree with your part. I agree with your assessment of the instinct versus learned behavior.
Yeah.
Because learned behavior will never be as immediate as instinct. You know, because I don't care how well you learn it. I don't care how much you studied it and how much repetition you've done. You're never going to react as quickly as the person that does it instinctually. You know, so I definitely do agree with that. It's something, it's almost like a running back, right? Certain good running backs see holes, they react, they cut. Their vision is just what it is. They can't tell you why the vision is this. They can't tell you why it's that way.
I think that's more what it is.
Yes.
When we can understand the entire phenomenon, we can replicate it. But going back to my earlier point, some of this stuff we don't understand yet. So when we look at Michael Jordan, we say, well, that's a jump shot, that's a layup, that's jumping ability, that's running ability. But the fact of the matter is, going to your point about running backs, there's probably elements of peripheral vision, touch, extra senses that we don't talk about. There's more than 5 senses. And I'm not talking about psychic woo-woo stuff. I'm talking about
absolutely.
Pain is a sense that, right? Like pain is one of the senses.
Absolutely.
Listen, so there are other elements we haven't broken down yet that might be contributing that aren't getting practiced with the learned behavior. And I think Kobe Bryant is what you get when a human being tries to be Michael Jordan.
Yeah, and when a physically gifted human being tries to be Michael Jordan.
He's as close as a human being can get to Michael. Michael was a different story. And James isn't even as good as Kobe, let alone
No. James Harden lacks the overall athleticism to be on that level. He because James Harden has the ability to make tough shots. Michael Jordan and even Kobe, but more so Mike, had the ability to make a tough shot not a tough shot anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the difference. You know, and it's the athleticism. I mean, you can D up James Harden and be right there. Yes. And he needs the foul to be called. You can call yourself D'ing up Michael Jordan, and then all of a sudden he's not there anymore.
Right. Exactly.
So therein lies the difference. And James Harden, from percentage wise, is not that much better of a 3-point shooter than Mike was, even though he shoots a lot more. But you know, it kind of is what it is. But yeah, so while we're talking about James Harden, I gotta, you know, this question is actually kind of floating around right now because suddenly it seems like the Rockets may have woken up or may have awakened. They are playing well, and a lot of it has to do with James Harden. And I mean, he's coming off monster games. I mean, on Monday they beat the Jazz 102-97. He had 47, 6, 5, and 5 steals. I mean, he's playing like he's back on that MVP stretch. And we got to think about it. This is a team that started the season 2-7, right? So I mean, they dug themselves quite a hole, right? And coming into the season, I think everybody thought that this was going to be a team that would be a contender. So if you put it in a perspective that they started the season 2-7, right? And you look at now, and they're over 500 at 15-14. So we're talking about they're 13-7 since that start. Okay. At this point, are they now for real? Are they now coming into what we thought? And is James Harden the biggest reason why?
No, they're not coming into what, you know, people hoped they would be. Because remember at the beginning of the season, they had Melo, and the tales were, I mean, technically they still have Melo at the time of this recording, but the tales were basically that with Chris Paul and James Harden and a better system, getting away from the torturous grasp of Russell Westbrook and the incompetence of Billy Donovan, Melo would turn back into a version of New York or Olympic or Denver Melo, hoodie Melo, whichever one you like. And the Rockets would exchange what they lost on defense for more offense. The truth of the matter is, when Melo stopped playing, for a brief period, their defense was worse. And what happened was their defense has gotten better, but their offense hasn't gotten anywhere near what it was last year yet. So it's really they have not gotten to the point where they are a top 4 or 5, or I would even say 6 team in the league right now. And I think clearly not so. I think they are clearly worse than Toronto, clearly worse than Boston. I think they're a worse version of what Milwaukee's doing, quite honestly. I think Giannis is a scarier version of James Harden, even though he doesn't shoot the three. The fact that the way he gets inside and they surrounded him with shooters playing that kind of 5-out style, more quicker with the ball, doesn't pad it as long. James is a great player on the offensive side of the ball. But Chris Paul's decline, the lack of complementary parts, the fact that Eric Gordon has been inconsistent this year, they are not a scary team in the playoffs right now, particularly because OKC is better than they were last year. And I would actually look at them for direct comparison, because you said James is playing at an MVP level and now they're back to contending, possibly.
Yeah, I mean,
good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of more asking the question because I don't think it's clear.
You have a contender when the MVP doesn't need to play like an MVP and they still play like this. And that's the key. Russell Westbrook has actually hit a cold streak after playing. He came off an injury, then he got hot, and now his shooting's been cold. And OKC has overall still been playing really, really well because they have other parts now. They have other people who can play really, really well. Paul George can explode, and they can beat a good team. I don't see that with the Rockets right now. If James Harden plays bad, they lose to any good team.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that obviously Chris Paul is capable. He's still not really playing well. I mean, he's not playing well at all. I mean, he's definitely not shooting the ball well at all. If you just look at like his last 4 games, strangely enough, they're on a 4-game winning streak. But if you look at Chris Paul's last 4 games, I mean, look at the shooting. Against Utah on Monday, he was 3 for 10. Against Memphis, the game before that, he was 3 for 10. Against the Lakers, the game before that, he was 3 for 10. Something about him and his 30% shooting is he's loving it. The game before that, he was 2 for 12. Something is definitely wrong with Chris Paul. But during that stretch, Harden has put up insane numbers, 29 points in one game. The next game, he has a 50-point triple-double against the Lakers.
Let's be real. Some of these games are it's not like they're destroying people. And what I think is really important is, first of all, in the last game, as of this recording, when he did the 14-step travel against Utah, and they called a foul on a 3-pointer, that was in a really close game against a team that has been struggling a bit in Utah. They've been kind of up and down this year. And you know what I'm saying? So the refs kind of save you in this situation. And I think the Lakers felt like they got robbed in certain scenarios too when they lost recently. So
the Lakers felt like that they weren't, that they were giving Harden even more calls, I guess, than normal.
Right. He went to the line 20 times.
Yeah, in the game against the Lakers, he went to the line. He shot 19 free throws. He made 18 of them. He really didn't even shoot well from 3. He shot okay. He was 4 for 12. I mean, that's not good. That's 25% actually. That's not good at all. But he had 50 points, 10 rebounds, 11 assists. And I mean, he was 14 to 26 from the field overall, which is good. Yeah. As a matter of fact, the only shots he missed were the threes.
But the knock on the Rockets has been, number one, Chris Paul is not always healthy in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And he's not starting out well.
No.
As far as that goes. James Harden doesn't play as well in the playoffs. Max Kellerman said something interesting that I don't entirely agree with, but I think in James's case, it's true. That if you're not an elite athlete or you don't have an elite particular skill, that when you get to the playoffs, you pay because people are playing you every night. The matchups are tighter. And that elite athleticism is what you need to get over the hump.
Yes, I would agree. I do think that is a major differentiator there.
Yeah. And so the
Because
thing,
it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about. You
yeah,
know, with separating Harden from the Mikes and from the Kobe's,
right.
because he's not an elite athlete. And I actually think I made this point someplace before, even before Max Kellerman, because he's not an elite athlete. He really needs the refs to bail him out.
Exactly. And that was going to be my next point, is that you don't get those calls in the playoffs unless you're Dwayne Wade versus Dallas. In every other situation, you don't get those calls.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not that consistently, not to the point where you win a series by the referees. They let a lot more go in the playoffs. And also, I think what happens is when people see you every single night, there's little things that you get away with during the regular season that they expect.
Yeah.
And you look at,
they also start, the refs start, each series begins to take on its own story and its own narrative.
right.
And once the head coaches and the teammates from the other team start saying, "Hey man, watch that rip through. He's flopping on this. His contact's really not there." You know, and watch, every time he drives, he's he's throwing his shoulder, his chest into the action. He's creating this contact. This is not a foul. And then the refs and the officials, they're humans too, right? So they start to, to pull back a little bit, and start to, think twice about blowing a whistle. So it is, and because he can't play above people, and because he can't run past people, I think that partly explains it.
And here's my final verdict on the Rockets overall. I've been saying this for weeks now. The top teams in the NBA are the ones who can play defense in the modern era. All right. You look at almost every good team: Toronto, Boston, Golden State, OKC, even Denver plays better defense than people would give them credit for. I know I'm forgetting one, but
San Antonio,
LA, actually LA.
San Antonio, not this year necessarily, but
yeah, but but this year specifically, because the rules just changed. Los Angeles, their defense went way high, right?
Oh, they're playing way better defense.
Right. Those are the teams that play well. Those are the teams that are moving towards the top for the most part. It's the exception to the rule, the teams that win with offense, which is weird because you would think with the rule changes, the offenses would just explode. But I think what's happened is teams that can't play defense in this era are suffering. The only way for the Rockets to win in the face of that is to be the exception. And for them, the only way to be the exception is with really hot three-point shooting. And right now, they do not appear to have the personnel to have really hot three-point shooting to overcome the fact that they are, as of today, a far inferior defensive team to virtually every other quote-unquote contender.
No, I think that makes total sense. I actually, I mean, if you think about it, if you have an element that becomes just saturated everywhere, but then there's this other element that's also valuable,
right?
And few people have it. The people who have the most rare element are going to be ahead because everybody has this other thing.
Scarcity breeds value.
Yeah, everybody has the other thing. So it's like so if you have the athletes to defend, then it's all about defending in this era. It's all about length, athleticism, and attitude. That's what that's what it's about. If you have length, athleticism, and attitude, you can defend in this era on a high level. Now, you're not holding teams to 89.5 points a game like the Pistons used to do in the early 90s and all of that. And I remember the thing with the Bulls was hold a team under 100 points and you win 89% or 95% of the games. It was some insane statistic that they had. If you hold it, whenever they held teams under 100 points, they won like 95% of their games. You're not doing that anymore. The game has just changed. They're not even allowing that. But if you can hold a team under 105 and lower,
right,
then you're playing defense that is equivocally on it's on the same level, proportionately. So, yeah, I mean, I do think that's the case, and I do think that the Rockets, the Rockets, I think this year especially, are more of a regular season team than ever. I don't, but I think this all depends on Chris Paul. We're talking about James Harden, and that's who's getting the spotlight because he's playing so well and putting up these monster numbers. But the Rockets are only going to go as far as Chris Paul can take them. And I'm not saying Chris Paul's the man on the team or anything like that, but Chris Paul is the other guy. And the Rockets need at least two guys playing at a super high level in terms of not just creating and scoring for themselves, but creating opportunities for the other guys. And if it's, I mean, Chris Paul's doing half of that because his assist numbers are still going to be there, but he's not scoring and he's not shooting the ball well enough to keep that floor balanced. Because last year when they were at their best, they could start offense from two different spots on the floor.
Yeah.
And the offense could start with the guy controlling the ball, either scoring it, driving the basket, getting fouled, going to the free throw line, or creating a scoring opportunity for somebody else. Right now, they're not functioning or not hitting on all
the other thing
cylinders.
was also when Chris Paul was playing at his peak last year, they could roll out essentially two starting units throughout the entire course of the game.
Yes.
They didn't have a real bench. They had two starting teams.
Yeah.
And one team had two all-star point guards and the other one had one. Yeah. And D'Antoni had that freedom throughout the course of the game. And that's another point I've been making for a while. When your backup point guard is excellent, that makes it really hard to deal with because the overall IQ and efficiency of your team doesn't take a dip. I think that's part of the reason OKC has also been so good. Because with Schroeder being a starting point guard coming off the bench, as opposed to Raymond Felton coming off the bench, you don't all of a sudden get this, lottery team to beat up on while Russell Westbrook is getting a breather.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And the Rockets don't have that superpower it's not Chris Paul's fault. It's the lack of depth throughout the rest of the team.
Shifting gears, we're still talking about point guards though. It appears as though Kyrie Irving is committing verbally to staying with Boston. He's pretty much, for the most part, that's the word out there, that he's going to stay with Boston. So that question that creates, or the question that is presented now is, does Boston need to deal Terry Rozier? And Rozier, I think Rozier's stock has dipped a bit this season. I think if you talk to people about Terry Rozier at the end of last season, I think you would have people arguing, hey, that the Celtics have two NBA starting level point guards, but he's not had the type of season that people expected. I mean, he's shooting like 39% from the field, 36% from three-point range, which is okay. His free throw shooting is down, and he's averaging 8.5 points a game, playing 23 minutes a night, which is not horrible, but he's certainly not setting the world on fire, right? But he's only 24, and he does have some examples from his recent past that would tell you that, hey, this kid may be able to be a starting level point guard. And the Celtics, even though on paper, I mean, before the season started, like the Celtics were like a total 2K team. Like, I mean, you look at their roster, you're like, oh yeah, I play with them all day, because they just seem like they got guys everywhere. But for whatever reason, it's not all come together. I think a lot of the reason it hasn't all come together is because of Gordon Hayward hasn't really hit his stride after coming back from the injury, but it hasn't hit his stride. And Jaylen Brown was out as well. So, do you think they need to deal Terry Rozier now, seeing as though they probably have their point guard locked up?
I want to specify this a little bit. First of all, I think we're being a little hard on Boston because they started the season with adding two starting players from what they ended the season with, coming off of injury.
Right.
And until they changed their rotation, everybody was struggling in the very early going. Nobody looked as good as they did in previous years. Then Kyrie got his act together offensively, but the rest of the team still wasn't performing optimally until they put Marcus Smart in the starting lineup. With all that having been said, they would be in fourth place if they were in the West, right? So they have a good record. They're not a bad team by any stretch. They are one of the better teams in the NBA. They are still a favorite to make it into the Final Four in the playoffs at this point, right now, playing the way they are. That's reasonable.
I mean, it's reasonable, yes.
Right. It's totally reasonable, especially going back to what you were saying about the Rockets. You look at how they started, you look at where they are, you look at where, and the fact that their talent is young, right? The Rockets have older guys that might break down by the end of the season. Jason Tatum should be a better player come playoffs than he is right now. It's the way young guys tend to work, right? So Boston is in a good situation moving forward. However, there is a trade possibility out there that would make the answer to your question yes. And it would be basically, if they build a core around Kyrie Irving, Jason Tatum, and Anthony Davis, they have a lot of leeway to do whatever else they want. Al Horford's probably going to be there, right? So they have enough assets to get Anthony Davis at some point before Anthony Davis's contract is over.
So wait a minute. Let me say that core again.
Kyrie Irving, Jason Tatum, Anthony Davis.
Okay.
I think with their intelligence that they have in the coaching staff, with their ability to make moves and fill their roster with complementary talent, they could take that core to the bank and say, we're going to fight you with this for 10 years.
I think they could too, but I don't know that the Pelicans do a deal for Anthony Davis without Jason Tatum in it.
Maybe not, but Celtics have how many? Don't they have a lot of first round picks too?
I don't know how many they still have, because they spent a lot of seasons stockpiling first round picks. So, but some of that has gone. They do actually have a lottery pick this year from. Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, it's not going to be high.
That can give up 3 high-quality starting level players and a bunch of draft picks and take on salary.
Actually, they have 3 first-round picks this year.
Yeah. So they, like the Pelicans, can, because here's the thing. There's no deal on the table in the league better than what Boston can offer. So they control the market. Anthony Davis, if he says I'm leaving and the Pelicans decide, well, we need to rebuild, Boston offers the absolute best rebuilding package by far on paper right now.
Yeah, I would say so. I don't know though.
But my answer to you is
for me to do that without him.
I get it. What my answer is, but the thing is, even with Tatum not in the deal, that's still better than what the Lakers can offer you. That's still better than what anybody else can offer you. Nobody has gathered as many assets as Boston. And Boston, because if Gordon Hayward continues to get healthier, and he has been getting healthier, like there's no reason to believe that he won't eventually get back to a guy who is a starting level player.
So you're saying Gordon Hayward,
Jaylen Brown, Terry Rozier, and a bunch of first-round draft picks for Anthony Davis gets no better than that.
I don't know.
Gets no better than that. Knowing you're going to lose him anyway.
I feel like you're getting fleeced, but I mean, I don't know.
You ain't getting fleeced for something you're about to lose.
I put it like this. I feel like that sounds great, right? If the draft picks the draft picks are the biggest value, but you got to win on those draft picks, right?
Yeah.
And the thing of it is Gordon Hayward, like you said, it's totally reasonable to think that he becomes, what he was before. It's totally reasonable, but it's also logical to think that he doesn't. Right. So he's one of the most significant players that you have there. Jaylen Brown I have a lot of confidence in Jaylen Brown being a very good player in the NBA. Terry Rozier, I think, definitely has some potential. There's just a lot of ifs. To me, if I am moving Anthony Davis, I want at least one thing in the draft, in the trade, that I know is
going back to my point, who would that be?
This is why
I can't say Jason Tatum, because Boston controls the highest overall offer. It needs to be somebody else offering you something for Anthony Davis that you're gonna lose anyway.
What I think is, if you look at the Lakers, if you look at Kyle Kuzma, I think Kyle Kuzma is the guy who's like, okay, I know what this kid is. He's not hurt. I know that the upside is still there. He's already a really good player, and the upside is absolutely there for him to be even better. So if you give a deal of Kuzma, Lonzo Ball, and the Lakers first round pick, which is not going to be great, it's going to be in the 20s. I don't know. And then also I would say we need a second round pick, but the Lakers don't even have a second round pick this year. But there's some other future draft considerations would have to be involved. But I don't know, depending on how attached you are to getting something back that is a proven non-injured commodity, that might be interesting. Now, I'm going to tell you, the Bulls could actually put together. No, listen to what I'm saying.
Anthony Davis, no, because he's not going to sign with the Bulls. That's the problem.
What I'm saying. The only, and I'm going to shoot it down myself.
I know, right? you just started your head coaching job for the Bulls.
No, I'm gonna shoot it down myself, but I'm gonna give you both sides of it.
Okay.
The Bulls could give a package that is actually better than the Celtics from a talent, an in-league talent standpoint. Now, here's the problem. The Bulls probably would not give all of that up, because the chances that Anthony Davis re-signs in Chicago, even though that's his hometown, are probably slim to none. Okay. But Wendell Carter Jr., Chris Dunn, the Bulls are horrible right now. Anthony Davis helps them, but the pick is still going to be a lottery pick. Still going to be a lottery pick.
I'm embarrassed for you.
And
I'm embarrassed for Chicago.
Are you serious?
I'm embarrassed
have you watched Wendell Carter this year?
He's a good player.
Yes, he's a very good player. And he's 20.
Yeah, he's good.
And he's on the books for at least 3 more years if you pick up the option.
Yeah.
And we're talking about at $3.7 million. Now, the Bulls would have to find or give here's the trade. Here's the trade. It's Jabari Parker. And Jabari Parker's not going there for value. He's going there to make the trade numbers work. That's the only reason. And he comes off the books at the end of this year. So he's a salary dump just to make the trade work. So he's not presenting value. But it's Jabari Parker, Wendell Carter Jr., Chris Dunn, and the Bulls' first round pick this year, which is going to be a lottery pick. That's a better deal than the Boston Celtics. The only problem is that Anthony Davis is not going to sign in Chicago. So why would the Bulls do that? They'll be giving away so much. I mean, honestly, if I was the Bulls, I'd do it anyway. Because I would take the risk of saying, hey, we're going to try to make this guy fall in love with his own with his hometown city. I would do it. The Bulls have as many young assets on their team.
This is getting ugly. Here's the thing.
The Bulls have a ton of young assets.
It doesn't make sense for the Bulls to give up Wendell Carter Jr. at this point for a guy that is almost definitely going to leave town. And your organization is the second biggest mess in the league.
It's a mess. It's a big bag of trash.
Right. And he's tired of losing. His organization is not even a mess.
But this is why I said I'm shooting my own argument down. But
and here's the thing. You talk about all of the young talent on your team. The young talent in Boston almost went to the finals.
You know why? The difference between the young talent in Boston and the young talent in Chicago is the young talent in Boston is well coached.
They are definitely much better coached. We can all agree with that. We ain't even sure if you guys have a coach right now.
I don't know. Whatever. It's horrible. And so that's what's happening. It's horrible. So my point of it was just from a package standpoint. The Bulls can offer a package.
I don't agree. I don't agree that that's a better package.
The
only reason that package even gets, here's the thing. Here's where this doesn't make any sense, because we're trying to talk about stuff that makes actual sense that might happen. And I'm asking you, who can offer a better package?
And I'm saying the Bulls could offer a better package.
When we say can, we mean actually might. This is something that actually could be on the table. The only thing the Bulls that they could give up would basically be Zion Williamson.
Here's the thing.
Why would you do that? You're a rebuilding team.
You know, I honestly, would you rather have Zion Williamson or Anthony Davis?
If you're a rebuilding team and you have it, hold on real quick. Let me finish my sentence. And you have a draft pick, a high draft pick, possibly number 1 in this draft, and your window is not going to open up for another 3 years minimum, particularly when you not only have player personnel problems, but you don't have a system in place yet. So you're going to be looking for your coach. You are not going to get an Anthony Davis that is almost 100% going to leave over a Zion Williamson who is 100% going to stay.
Here's the thing. I understand what you're saying. And this is the point that I was making. This is the reason why I say the Bulls would probably not make this offer, even though I may consider taking this gamble, because you can't compare it to the Kawhi situation, because Kawhi walked into a Toronto team that is a winning team. And it's much easier to convince a guy to stay if you're winning. The Bulls, in order to have a chance to, like, this year is done. But see, people forget Anthony Davis is not a free agent this year.
Yeah,
he's a free agent at the end of next year. So the Bulls would still have a season and a half to try to put something together around him that is a good enough team. The thing of it is you still. I'm becoming less of a believer of Zach LaVine by the minute, but he's still going there to play with Lauri Markkanen. And Lauri Markkanen is a future star in the league. I'm telling you, Lauri Markkanen is a future star in the league.
Lauri Markkanen, star in the league?
Yeah, Anthony freaking Davis.
No, Kyrie Irving. Remember, I mean, we're talking about.
I'm not saying that. That's clear, obviously, but we're talking about. I'm not talking about Anthony Davis's choice yet.
But you have to. It's part of the deal.
It is part of the deal, but it's not part of the deal, right? Because think about it like this. The Bulls could trade Anthony Davis in the middle of next season.
So you think for a year in Chicago, you think it's all worth it, because after a year in Chicago, Anthony Davis might hang around.
He might hang around, but during the middle of next season, you might get the indication he's not staying. So now the Bulls become the team with the asset.
I'm just so glad that this footage is frozen in time.
I'm just trying to say, like I said,
everybody can see how Chicago fans think.
No, like I said, this is a deal that is more than likely not going to happen. I totally understand why it wouldn't happen from a Bulls standpoint.
So you still have not answered my question. What situation is more likely and favorable?
That's not what you said at
than
first.
The Boston situation.
That's not what you said at first.
I didn't know that you was going to go to complete unrealistic Chicago fantasy land for something that's obviously not going to happen. So now I have to narrow it down. I have to narrow it down because you're being ridiculous. Because you're being ridiculous.
No, you said what team?
You said I'll agree on something I don't even agree with. I don't even think this is going to happen. But I'm going to waste the people's time anyway, because I'm from Chicago, and I just want to dream and not think about how terrible my team is.
This was great. As a matter of fact, people probably think I'm from Texas today because I have on a Rangers hat and a Fast Slamma Jamma t-shirt.
But they can smell the deep dish coming through the monitor.
I wish I had some. I think we're going to order some deep dish today. Anyway,
I might have a real pizza, but they only make in New York.
No, the sheet of paper with tomato sauce on it, that's some crap. It's the worst thing. And you order a slice
Y'all make great
pizza.
pasta. Pasta's awesome.
Yeah, well, you know
Italian dishes are great.
Yeah,
But pizza, which is different
a
than
sheet of meat,
a
cheese,
souffle.
a
Y'all be
sheet
making
of
souffle
meat,
and call it.
cheese,
Y'all don't
and
understand what lasagna
sauce
actually is, and y'all
is
call it pizza.
hot baskets of garbage. Anyway, what you said was what team could offer a better deal?
That to complete the sentence, that Anthony Davis would actually take.
Okay, well, no, you had completed your sentence. Now you're up. Now you're adding an amendment.
How much sense you had? I forgot that you were in Chicago. I forgot you were in Chicago. And if I ask a question, you might bring up the Bulls. You might be like, "Who gonna be the MVP this year?" You be like, "Well, if Laurie Marketing really turns it up, he got a chance."
I forgot that you were in New York, so y'all are abrupt and you cut off sentences midway because of your inherent rudeness. So there is that. So now
Chicago, y'all can't lecture nobody on rudeness. I've been to your city several times.
No, people are rude in Chicago for a reason. They're angry. They're cold. There's wind is blowing. People in New York are just angry because they're not in Chicago. That's the whole point. That's how it all works. But anyway, we gotta go because we were talking about this anyway, and we were talking about Giannis and we were talking about LeBron before we went down this ridiculous geographic street.
Ridiculous is correct.
People don't say this whole question. This is worse than talking to my wife. As you say half the question, and I'm supposed to know what you're talking about. This is ridiculous. And anyway, who's the most physically gifted? Right? I had this question. Is Giannis or is it a prime LeBron? The more physically, I'm not talking about shooting ability necessarily. I'm not talking about basketball IQ. I'm just talking about in just pure freakish athleticism. Which one is the most physically gifted?
LeBron James. But I do think it's a valid question to ask. This is a comparison that actually reminds me a lot of Kobe Bryant versus LeBron James. Because Kobe, from a skill standpoint, when LeBron was first coming into the league, from just offensively, was like superior. Like he had better ball handle, better post-up game, better three-point shot early on, better free throw shooter, more moves, you know what I mean? Just the handle, everything. But LeBron was such a freakish athlete, several inches taller, right? That it is just like it almost overcame everything.
Right.
Similarly, LeBron James, Giannis is just taller than he is and has these gigantic hands.
Yes.
Which we don't list them as athletic abilities like we do running and jumping. And also Giannis is freaky strong too. And just getting strong about a minute. He's stronger now than when I first began this sentence, right?
Yeah, I mean, I posted a picture of him in a YouTube video, and it was like, I don't know. I mean, he looked like, he looked like a tight end.
Yeah, he's listed as 6'11". On the court, he always looks like the biggest person on the court. Yeah. Guys say that, they're 7 feet and then they're 7 feet. Giannis is one of those people. He's a bigger person. Yeah. And he does that moving like a guard.
Yeah.
Right? And it's crazy and it's ridiculous. And I think if you go to the overall sum of their talents, the important thing is that when it goes to going to the basket, Giannis is at worst equally as freaky as LeBron James was in his prime, from the standpoint of I've never seen anyone get the dunks that Giannis is getting. He's getting dunks like an old 2K game where you made a creative player that was too tall for the animation package that he has. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like, he's not supposed to be doing the stuff that he's supposed to be doing. LeBron James, he's not supposed to be doing this stuff. It was more like Zion, where he's so big and so fast and jumps so high. He has such a good handle. He has such good instincts that he's constantly amazing you. But you expect it after the first few seconds of seeing him. It is what you're supposed to see, which is a bigger, stronger version of what you get out of a Michael Jordan or a Dwayne Wade or something like that. Yeah. Giannis, I've never seen Giannis Antetokounmpo. I don't know what this is. This is crazy to me. And he's still super young. very raw in many ways, although I think he doesn't get enough credit for the skill that he has in the post. He has a very skilled post game.
Very good post game.
Yeah. It just doesn't anytime the post game don't look like Tim Duncan or Hakeem, people say
or
he
Kevin
doesn't work
McHale.
Yeah. Right.
Because if you can get dunks out of the post,
he's pretty good.
I mean, what?
Right. And he gets more than that, right? He got little jumpers, little hooks. Like he's got and speed, knows how to use his shoulders.
Yeah.
Good post game. Very good post game. Dwight Howard killed for his post game. So, right, exactly. But Giannis is a freak in his own right that deserves discussion. But LeBron James is the greatest athlete I have ever seen wear a basketball uniform, personally.
I've always said that LeBron James was the greatest athlete that I've ever seen in basketball. The only thing that was close is Wilt Chamberlain. Like, Wilt Chamberlain at his size, the speed, the leaping ability, and obviously the strength. I think if you just look at and I'm not just talking about a highlight. Let's look at a clip of Wilt Chamberlain, like an extended clip that shows a couple trips and stuff. It just really looked like it was a grown man playing with kids. Just from.
And it's worth noting that Wilt Chamberlain was on record an Olympic athlete in like several categories. He's like an Olympic sprinter, Olympic high jumper,
high jumper, yeah.
Like I don't know if he was an Olympic level sprinter, but I know he was
an Olympic level sprinter.
He was an elite sprinter in like high school or something like that.
Yeah. He was an Olympic level high jumper though.
Yeah, but Olympic level in the high jump, which is I mean, and you look
at he wasn't even doing it right yet.
Right. Look at him do the high jump and remember that he's like 7'1".
He wasn't even doing it right yet. He wasn't even doing the Fosbury flop yet.
Yeah,
He wasn't even doing it right.
The issue with Wilt is his footage is in black and white and he's playing up against guys who look like they should be serving your newspaper in the morning.
Exactly.
Whereas LeBron James, that was basically yesterday. And the thing about LeBron James is just look at his peak year. I mean, honestly, even his early years, he literally had to duck to not hit his head on the backboard and rim coming down from dunks. Like, it was insane. Mm-hmm. And we still had Mike and Vince Carter fresh in our memory. And we're still looking at LeBron like, what is happening right now? And going to our earlier conversation, LeBron doesn't just have the leaping ability, but his strength, explosiveness, and that mystery element. Now, you play a lot of ball. You ever play against a professional basketball player?
Yeah.
Were they a great athlete?
They were great athletes. I actually got a story for that when you're done.
Okay. So the thing you notice, and my brother ran track in high school. He's the MVP of his track team, and there were some elite athletes that he ran with. And he described the same phenomenon. Sometimes when you're around a great athlete, there's like a force field or explosion that seems to push you away from them when they do stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm just talking about an NBA draft pick that I played against, right? A couple of college athletes that had above normal people level athleticism. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about the greatest athlete ever. So when LeBron James is doing that to the entire Detroit Pistons team, like, you're literally just seeing them like, I'm moving too slow to react to what he's doing, despite the fact that he's 6'8" and 255 pounds at this point. He's still moving too fast, too far, too high for me to react to, making a defense look bad because of his just sheer level of explosiveness.
A good defense.
Right. Giannis is not that, even though Giannis is a freak of a different kind. With the shoulders, the ridiculous arm length, the hand size, the height, the coordination, and his ability to run and jump, it all comes together in a really outrageous package, but he is not a greater overall, I think, physical presence as prime LeBron right now.
I think Giannis is a greater basketball specimen, but I think that LeBron is the prime LeBron was a better pure athlete, which is kind of what the question was more so. Because of what it takes to be good at basketball, Giannis's overall package of athleticism and length is probably the more desirable overall package. I mean, he's like Kevin Durant with a little bit of LeBron because of some of the strength, but the difference is he doesn't shoot like Kevin Durant. If he shot like Kevin Durant, then he'd average 55 points a game.
If Giannis learns to shoot, I mean, honestly, he doesn't need to, but if Giannis learns to shoot, the NBA will literally just be 100% at his mercy.
Yeah, because there's really,
nothing
especially running 5 out.
Yeah, there's like right now, there's almost nothing you can do.
Yeah, I mean, because I mean, every night, if he wanted to get 35, he could get 35 every night. Right now.
Yeah.
Right now, you know, and that's insane in itself. But from a pure run, jump, strength, change of direction, hang time, height on the leaping, I still think that LeBron is the greatest athlete I've ever seen in basketball. I mean, he's one of the greatest athletes I've ever seen, period. And I'm talking about Bo Jackson, Usain Bolt.
Ridiculous.
You know,
can I add to that real quick?
Sure.
Because I do want to stress this, because it's kind of a theme with this show, the other elements. LeBron has the quickest eyes and just level of anticipation that you can find. Like, and the thing is, if we're both equally athletic, but you know what's going to happen before I do, that makes you faster.
Oh yeah, that's what we're talking about. We were talking about instincts over learned behavior. You know, and
LeBron is basketball genius. He knows.
Oh, he absolutely is. He absolutely is. And to some degree, it's to a fault, because that's part of the reason why he's so hard to coach.
Yeah,
part of the reason. It's part of the reason, because 9 times out of 10 he knows more than the coach.
Yeah.
And when you know more than the coach, even when you're wrong, it's hard to admit it or accept it, because you know, and everybody else knows, you might be right. But in this particular situation, you might be wrong. But who's going to step back? Who's going to take down? I think Rajon Rondo is a similar type of a guy, even though he's not as physically gifted or as just flat good as LeBron. But he has a basketball IQ that is on that level.
Regular IQ that's also really high. And it's hard to tell smart people that they're wrong.
It really is. It really is.
Going to the instinct, though, I think what works in Giannis's favor on the flip side of that is Giannis is a very humble, very freakish guy who is just determined to learn and beat his competition
on his own, in the box, or in the situation that he's been presented.
Yes.
Like, Giannis is a different guy, right? Yeah. And for right now, he's holding on to this "I'm gonna do it in Milwaukee" thing.
Yeah.
And that means something to him. And because he's a different thinker. I don't know how long he's going to hold out with that. I don't know. I mean, this season helps, of course.
No, they got the third best record in the league.
So. Right, that's what I'm saying. This season helps because they're having some success.
Yeah.
But we got to see what happens after some legitimate heartaches and heartbreaks. You know, in seasons where you thought you were good enough. You know, and the more I think the fact that he is not American helps.
Yeah,
it helps a lot, because he's not as subject to the pressures that you know, and the people in his ear telling him, hey man, you know, and if you went to LA, if you went to Boston, or if you went to Philly, you know what kind of star you'd be. You can sell this amount of shoes. So I mean, I'm not saying he's impervious to that type of stuff. I just think that it's not as ingrained in him.
Well, he doesn't have the same cliques too. Like, he didn't go to all these same high schools and camps and all these guys.
He doesn't. And culturally, he didn't grow up with the exact same value system as American players or North American players. So I think that does help. I mean, Milwaukee drafting Giannis Antetokounmpo was probably the best draft pick of any NBA team when you consider where he was drafted.
Yeah.
Probably in the last 10 or 15 years, maybe 20.
Yeah.
You know, the only thing close is Kawhi Leonard with San Antonio. That's the only thing close. But I would say even Giannis is even more valuable. And the reason why I say that is because it's Milwaukee.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's Milwaukee. You know, San Antonio had a winning lineage, recent winning
No, this is
lineage.
already the best I have in my lifetime ever seen the Milwaukee Bucks.
Oh, it's not the best I've seen. Like, I mean, the Bucks, the Paul Pressey, Sidney Moncrief, those Bucks were right there.
Before my time.
those Bucks were right there. They were right there. They were the team pushing the 76ers and the Celtics in the 80s, getting to the Eastern Conference Finals are right there. A lot of people considering them to be among the best. Like we thought, when I was a kid, I remember when Bob Lanier went to the Bucks from the Pistons, and my father was like, "Oh yeah, they can get them now. They can get them."
That's where the age difference comes in. I was only 2 years old when the 80s began. Not even. So I like one when the 80s began. So I wasn't as aware of what was happening.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but definitely this is there was a Bucks team. Well, but I think this team is still probably better. There was a Bucks team in the 90s with Ray Allen and Vin Baker.
He's better than that team.
Yeah, they're probably better. But that was a good team though.
It was all right. I mean, it was all right.
Didn't they go to the Eastern Conference Finals one year?
I know they lost to Iverson. They lost to the Nets with Jason Kidd, and
I thought they might have gone to the Eastern Conference Finals. So if you think about it, they actually. Well, we'll have to see what happens with this Bucks team.
The East was much weaker than it is right now. The Bucks are second in the East when the East is the better conference, and the Bucks have the third overall best record in the league. That other Bucks team wasn't as good.
Well, I mean,
that other Bucks team in the overall scope of the NBA was a joke. Like if you compared that Bucks team to the Lakers back then, you'd be like, they can't play the Lakers.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I guess you do still have to see how far they get.
Yeah, they got to keep it up and all that other stuff.
Yeah, because I mean, that was the 2000-2001 Bucks team.
Yeah, most of the talent on the Bucks has a green arrow going upward after their name because they're all younger. Not all, but they're mostly younger or improving in some kind of way. Their coach is going to be getting better with their system, so I imagine that they'll keep going forward. But right now, that Bucks team is better than the 01 Bucks team.
Yeah, you know what? You probably really have to say that because the team that they lost to that 76ers Iverson.
That's what I said. They lost to Iverson.
They lost to the Iverson team, and they lost in 7. But they lost to them. They won the Central Division.
And had they not, they would have gotten annihilated by Kobe and Shaq. It would have been so embarrassing. We would not be having this conversation.
Yeah, I definitely think they lose. But it would have been a different matchup for sure. But I definitely think they lose. They just didn't. Ray Allen. Actually, Vin Baker wasn't even on that team. Vin Baker couldn't have been on the team because he got traded for Ray Allen. That's how they swapped. So
it was Ray, Glenn Robinson, and Sam Cassell, right?
Sam Cassell and Tim Thomas. Tim Thomas actually had a pretty decent year.
He's all right. Yeah, I don't think that core was gonna do too much.
No. It would. I don't know.
They wouldn't have beat Kobe and Powell. Let alone
they wouldn't have beat Kobe. They wouldn't have beat the Lakers. But yeah. Ray was the truth, though, man. Ray, it would have been great to watch Ray Allen and Kobe Bryant go head to head for a series.
It would have been nice to see them in the playoff series because they really don't like each other.
And Ray was in his prime.
Yeah.
He was 25.
Yeah, people forget how athletic he was.
Oh man, he was in a dunk contest.
Yeah.
So, because everybody thinks of Ray Allen is nothing but a pure shooter, but he was much more than that. He was much.
He had handle. He had the whole package.
He had everything, dude. He had everything. So I think as much love as he gets, I still think he's one of the more underrated players in the league. In his
I don't know about that because he wasn't. I don't think he was ever a dominant guard, and that's his problem. Is he's another guy who was an intellectual player that I think wanted to succeed within the structure. And we've been talking about Kobe Bryant a lot today, and this is a great comparison to talk about it. One of the things a lot of his opponents say about Kobe was you underestimate what it's like when a guy is willing to take 40 shots against you. That it's so mentally and physically draining, especially with a strong guard like Kobe who's elbowing you the entire time. Now, when you get to the fourth quarter, that's why he was so good in the fourth quarter, because he beat his opponents down over the course of the entire game. There's this great clip of Doc Rivers, if you watch the series, when they're playing against the Celtics, and Kobe is destroying Paul Pierce and Ray Allen, just making these Jordan shots. And they had Doc Rivers mic'd up, and he's like, it's only 2 points. Keep your head up. He's telling us to Paul Pierce and Ray Allen. You know what I'm saying? Like champions. And he's like, keep your head up, guys. It's fine. Don't worry about it. He's just a man. It's like, are you kidding me? And Ray Allen didn't do that. And to his credit, we beat him up a lot today. James Harden plays like that. Dwayne Wade played like that. Ray Allen didn't impose his will on you. So he had the skills, but I don't think he had the will. I take
Ray Allen over all of those guys you just mentioned, Kobe included.
I mean, that's fine. And you take his 2 championships, I'll take 5.
Yeah, well, I think if Ray Allen played with Shaq 3 of them seasons, he'd probably have those titles too.
I don't know. I think you're greatly underestimating those San Antonio and Sacramento Kings teams because I don't want to get into a Kobe debate right now. But you look at Kobe.
I'm not putting Kobe down. I'm not putting Kobe down. I'm just saying that Ray Allen was amazing, and Ray
Allen never played that well in the playoffs.
Ray Allen didn't play on the same types of teams that Kobe played on, and that really, really matters. And Ray Allen did have some phenomenal playoff series. I mean, even before he got with Boston, before he got with Miami. I mean, in 04-05, he averaged 26.5 points a game, 4.3 rebounds, 3.9 assists. You know, shot 47% from the field.
What did Kobe average versus Sacramento and San Antonio?
Huh?
What did Kobe average versus Sacramento and San Antonio?
In San Antonio, he owned San Antonio. He owned Alamo.
Which is important. That's an important detail, Brian. That's an important detail.
But what I'm saying is, none of those numbers would have mattered if they didn't win, and if the reasons that they won were not just because of Kobe, it were because he played with one of the most dominant players in the history of the game in Shaq. I mean, that you can't like say or act like that doesn't matter.
I never did. That's a straw man argument. I never at any point in my life said Shaquille O'Neal didn't matter.
What I'm saying is, but Ray Allen didn't play with anybody close to that.
But when he was on his own, he didn't peak like Kobe did either. And that goes to my point.
But you know what? Had he taken the amount of shots that Kobe shot,
but everybody can't, which is my entire point.
He could have.
Everyone can't. Everyone's not built like that,
dude. From a conditioning standpoint, and even mentally, Ray Allen is anything but a weak guy.
Never said he was weak.
But I mean, it's implied when you say that Kobe has the mentality.
It's not implied. I'm saying Kobe was a different animal, and these guys are rare. The guys who are willing to
shoot 41% from the field because they're going to get their 27 shots up regardless. Yeah, that's you're right. But it's rare, but everything rare ain't positive.
But no, but in the playoffs, when you're skilled enough in the playoffs, that thing that can be ugly can help you because sometimes that's all that's available. And sometimes, especially when guys know the matchups and that structure goes away, being able to break the opponent's will is a serious factor. And the thing is, this is not me saying this. This is other NBA players saying this. You ask any NBA player, none of them say Ray Allen is the toughest guy I had to guard, and they played against Kobe.
I think that Kobe gets too much credit for succeeding or stacking insane statistics on bad teams. I think he gets too much credit for. I think there are elements of that can be appreciated, but I think that is added to his greatness resume far too often. I really do, because I think that to a degree, it's part of his problem. It's part of what makes me say. It's part of my critique of him. It's part of my criticism of him. Because Kobe is a type of guy, I only know one way. I gotta go. I gotta do it like this. I gotta do it like this. I gotta go. And in some situations, that approach works. But when things go bad, you get the Smush Parker years. You get the Chris Mim time. You get the Devin George time. And Kobe's like, you know what? We suck, but you know what I'm gonna do? I'm going to shoot 47 times. And you know what? We're still going to lose. And I know we're going to lose. But I'm going to shoot this many times because at the end of this game, I'm going to have 56. At the end of this game, I'm going to have 67. And it's like, okay, you got that. But did the team get any better? Did you make the most of what you have on your team?
I think Kobe definitely made the most of Chris Mims, Smush Parker, Kwame Brown, Devin George. And Jordan Farmar. I think he made the best out of it. I'm not saying those
guys are elite level talents, but I think Kobe went on absolute autopilot during those years. And I think it is an example of his.
They shouldn't have even have been in that series with the Suns. Ray Allen has missed the playoffs with Rashard Lewis on his team. When Rashard Lewis was also just this awesome stretch four. Like, he's been on solid teams that didn't do anything.
Rashard Lewis and the word awesome is something that I would never necessarily.
Rashard Lewis was a solid player.
He was a solid player. Solid and awesome are two totally different things.
I said stretch four. He was good at that. He was really, really good at that.
He was never a stretch four with Seattle. He didn't get to be a stretch four until after that.
Rashard Lewis on the Lakers instead of any of the forwards that they had, you trade Devin George for Rashard Lewis, I think they beat Phoenix.
If you trade Devin George for Rashard Lewis, Rashard Lewis gets 9 less shots a game.
I don't think so.
Because Kobe's going to shoot it on 9 people.
I don't think so. Kobe has teams that have put up numbers before, man.
Not during that time. During that time of Kobe's life.
Because they were terrible. You don't want Smush Parker shooting. No one wanted Smush Parker shooting except the other team and his mama. But we done debated Kobe. We ain't even supposed to be talking about Kobe Bryant right now. If you want to debate Kobe Bryant,
you do this.
Bring him on to the show as a topic. We can go into it.
Bring Kobe on? I don't think Kobe
as a topic because we've established something important. You would rather have Ray Allen than Kobe Bryant. That's great for the people to know.
I would.
Make sure to at me, bro.
I'd rather have Dwayne Wade than Kobe Bryant too. I've said that for years.
He's from Chicago. I bet you have Dwayne Wade over anybody except Michael Jordan.
No, I don't actually. I don't. Dwayne Wade's not from Chicago, so yeah,
he's from Illinois.
He is from Illinois. So is Myers
freaking
Leonard.
He don't count.
So is Myers freaking Leonard. Illinois is a big state. All right. Anyway, we got to shift gears totally because I am drunk with books ridiculousness and I need a detox or something. I got to get on a 12-step program to get off of this absolute ridiculousness. So we got to go to something that hopefully he's more sensible about. What is your video game of the year?
All right. Full disclosure, I haven't played Spider-Man.
That does take out a candidate.
Yeah, I haven't played Spider-Man or God of War. So
that's 2 big candidates.
Right. And I'm saving them for when I get into them. For the people who don't know, I work for Marvel Comics, and before Spider-Man came out, I'd been working on Spider-Man. I actually needed a little Spider-Man break. I wasn't going to be into it. I wanted to save it up because of what I do with my job. Sometimes I'll play video games based on what I'm working on. So if I'm working on a space thing, I might play more Destiny or dig up Mass Effect or something like that to inspire me. And because I knew Spider-Man was excellent, I had to hold it off for the next time I had to work on Spider-Man or something similar to Spider-Man. So that was on purpose to not mess with that game. So of the top games that came out this year, what I would really be comparing would be Call of Duty Black Ops, NBA 2K, and Red Dead Redemption. Those are the big new ones. Now, I think overall, as far as single player games go, I've never seen anything as layered in a sandbox as Red Dead. When you go to the feeling of entering a world, I'll actually bring up Far Cry 5 too. That was a good game this year. I like Far Cry 5 a lot more than a lot of other people did. Co-op experience with my brother was great. But overall, Red Dead was like the most excellent thing. You know, graphics, acting, the overall action. We talked about how it could really feel like a Wild West shootout. I took the auto aim off, so you know, the aiming actually brought more dynamics into it rather than the lock on, because you can choose exactly where you want to shoot. Just everything. The way you take care of your horses, the way you take care of yourself, your camp, story, whole 9 yards. If I had to vote for like a website, I would probably vote for Red Dead. But on a personal level, my favorite game this year has been a surprise to me, which was actually the Forsaken release for Destiny. They made so I was a big Destiny 1 fan, even though I knew it was a very flawed game. But the shooting was so excellent and so subtle with the shooting mechanics from gun to gun. That was just easy to get into it. And player versus environment was like the only thing I'd played ever that was like genuinely hard. You know, we had to get a whole bunch of people to really coordinate and all that stuff and blah, blah, blah. Destiny 2, when it first came out, art was beautiful, music was awesome, game was not very good. Mediocre in every way. Everything was more tame. This was an example of a company working month after month after month, figuring out the problems in their game. I'm so shocked at how much better Destiny 2 Forsaken expansion is with all the updates leading up to this point. Really, really, really enjoying that game. The artwork is just so much great art in that game. The shooting feels as good as it's ever felt. I play on PC for that game. That is probably overall my favorite experience this year. Although all of the games that I mentioned, I had a good time with. Had a good time with Black Ops, good time with 2K, best 2K in a long time. Good time with Far Cry 5, and all that other stuff. But yeah, that would be my number one. Oh.
Yeah. I do think not playing Spider-Man definitely probably is something that could be a factor. I don't know that it would change what you're saying. It's I don't think you'll find many people that have anything negative to say about Spider-Man. I actually can't remember hearing anybody say anything bad.
The only thing I heard negative about the Spider-Man thing was the Mary Jane missions. A lot of people didn't enjoy having to like do that and not be Spider-Man for a while.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, had I played Spider-Man, understand that as a comic book guy, like forget the fact that I'm a comic book artist, but just a guy who's grown up with that stuff, I might be heavily biased. And it'd be very hard for me to judge Spider-Man based on the fact that I based most of my life on getting the opportunity to work on something like Spider-Man. You know what I mean? So it would be hard to be objective.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine that. I can definitely imagine that. For me, I think it comes down to God of War, Red Dead, Spider-Man, and Hitman.
Oh, really?
Hitman, dude, is like really, really good. It's clearly, in my opinion, one of the and Call of Duty Black Ops 4.
Yeah.
It is in my
what system you play COD on?
I play it on PlayStation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You have to talk after the show, man.
I only play free for all.
I'm down with that.
Yeah, and you know what I realized last night why I'm addicted to free for all. It's because I don't like depending on other people to affect my gaming experience, right?
I totally agree with that.
But I like playing with other people, but I don't necessarily want to like when you're playing a team thing, somebody else can mess with your experience because they won't cooperate. But in free-for-all, I'm playing with other people, but we all have the same objective. Everybody's trying to kill the other person. So there's no cooperation really needed except for what is automatically going to happen, which is you're going to try to shoot and win. And if you don't try to shoot and win, it doesn't matter because everybody will just kill you. And then it's just whatever. So it doesn't matter. There is not the only thing you can cheat to do or whatever or mess it up is if you got some sort of modded controller or something goofy like that. But whatever, outside of that, it's what it is. So I realized that last night. That's why that's my mode, because the team stuff, and I think that's also why I don't tend to lean towards Pro-Am and Park in 2K, because other people can affect your experience very much. You know, you can get on and you can be the greatest player. I mean, just look at the guys complaining about the 2K Combine right now. It's the epitome of that particular argument. It's like, hey, I'm an elite level player. This guy or girl isn't. They're messing up my experience. You know, but if they were all playing a 32 or a 21, it wouldn't matter. It's just like, okay, y'all suck and I'm going to beat all of y'all. So it is what it is, you know? So that's just for me, but, those are my nominees, I would say. And I would have to go with Red Dead. The reason the Red Dead gets an edge over Call of Duty for one reason only. For what Call of Duty does, they do it better than everybody else, right? The gameplay is so super smooth.
Really tight.
It is just immaculate.
Plays almost like a PC game. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's straight
great.
immaculate. It's just fantastic.
Sounds amazing. Like
sound, everything. Like visually, it's not quite on the level of Battlefield, but it's still really, really, really good. So it doesn't matter.
Can I jump on that?
Yeah.
Battlefield exchanges visual fidelity for visual consistency and performance.
Yes.
Call of Duty says, you know what? We're going to dial back the bells and whistles, but what we give you, we're giving you 100%.
Yes.
You're not going to drop frames. You're not going to be popping in.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's always going to be the experience that we promise you. And I think that gaming overall has moved on from back in like 2003. A PC rig was all about graphics.
Yeah.
Now it's about performance.
Yes.
144 frames per second is much more important than 4K.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think Call of Duty wins that debate. So I would actually say Call of Duty has better graphical performance than Battlefield, even though it doesn't have better graphical fidelity.
Exactly. No, I think that's exactly right. But my only gripe with Call of Duty is that there isn't a single player campaign.
I hate that, because I love the fact that they always gave us a Michael Bay movie to play.
Yes. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be anything, oh my God, because everybody knows the longevity of Call of Duty is in the multiplayer. Everybody knows that, right? But I think that they did not give us a complete product because they chose to focus everything on their battle royale mode, or everything on their zombies and everything.
Which, to their credit,
the
battle royale is my personal favorite battle royale. I don't like that mode in general because I play shooting games to shoot people, not to hide from them. But as far as those modes go, that feels more like hunting other players down than it does feel like hiding from them. Now, this is in 4s. What I've heard that is if you play single player, there's just everybody creeping around waiting for everybody else to kill each other. But in 4s, it feels like strike teams hunting down other strike teams, which is an awesome feeling.
Yeah, yeah. That
I was gonna say, you brought up a great point about Call of Duty being the excellent version of what it is. And when we say game of the year, I think you have to give it to something like Red Dead that's basically excellent in 9 out of 10 categories that you could possibly have, right? So you have to give that your vote. But I think there's something to be said for a game like COD or UFC.
Oh, yes.
UFC 3 gave me 100% of the UFC MMA experience I was looking for. I would probably give that game a 7.5 or an 8 if I was judging it for other people against the history of gaming.
Yes.
But for me, it was a 10 basically.
Yes. Yeah. And
I enjoyed it. Really probably a 9 because of the character creation could be a little better, but
I think that's really important to understand.
Yeah.
Because games can be more valuable to different people for different reasons, right? And I've thought about this in the past, right? You know, because I write reviews partially for a living, and I thought about giving more than one score,
right?
You know, and I thought about giving a score for a hardcore fan, and kind of having it differentiate depending on like what it is, right? So say for instance, I'm reviewing an NHL game, right? So I give the casual sports fan, the casual NHL fans rating, and then I give the hardcore NHL fans rating, and in that way, where you fit, and and I give reasoning as to why I gave it a 7. If you're a hardcore guy, if you're a casual guy, you get a 9, because you're not looking for as much. You're not going to be as stringent on in your review. So I've thought about that before, and I think that's really important, because for some people, like for UFC 3, it pretty much gives me, like, I would have liked a little bit better career mode. It's much better than it was in the last version, but it still gets pretty preposterous late in your career.
Yeah.
It's like, really, I'm fighting. This is my 6th fight against him. Like,
right.
Like, this just wouldn't happen. But but it's better than it was. But as far as the get online, have a ranked match, I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. They've done as good a job with the grappling as can be. Like, it is. I'm actually writing up a sports video game of the year, or a series of those articles, and I am going to make sure that UFC 3 gets its due, because it is often the forgotten sports video game in the whole thing. And another thing that it's done is, it should win, if there's an award to be, and I'm going to create this award, best post-release support. I mean, there is no DLC, pay DLC. There's no season pass. There's none of that. But they add more fighters and more. I mean, dude, they're adding freaking moves, steel.
Yeah.
Like, and they're not charging anybody for the fighters. They're not doing none of that. It's just constantly, like, a week ago, they just added Dan Severn.
Man.
They added Chael Sonnen. And then they added two guys from Fight Night Champion. They added Andre Bishop and Isaac Frost, which I think is actually laying the groundwork for them bringing boxing back. But that's just my personal opinion. But this is what I mean, and this just happened like a week ago. So it's insane what they're doing. But I would still have to say that my game of the year is Red Dead. It's just such a complete game. And that's to me, that's the biggest, that's the pushing point, because no matter how you want to play this game, there's an above average experience in every aspect.
And that's the thing, like, to discuss Red Dead in the context of what we've said before. Red Dead says, come into the world of the Wild West and get a story. For the most part, it is not just excellent at that, but it is good at that in ways that if you imagine that in your own head, you wouldn't have imagined as well as they did. Right? So that is the literal definition of above and beyond. However, when I'm shooting a gun or a bow and arrow, it's not as satisfying as it is in other games with guns and bows and arrows. You ever play a violent shooting game and you shoot somebody right in their deserving face and you go, that was cold. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Far Cry, very underrated shooting mechanics. The thing with shooting mechanics is most games outside of Bungie and Call of Duty feel significantly worse. I played Far Cry. I was very surprised, pleasantly. It almost felt like their history of having all these games came together in this game, right? So the driving is better than it's supposed to be because they have all these driving games now. The swinging mechanic is better than it's supposed to be because they have rappelling in Rainbow Six. The shooting's better than it's supposed to be because of Rainbow Six. You know what I'm saying? Like, they have access to all these systems, and maybe, I don't know if their resource sharing is on point, but it just felt like, man, this is like super polished. The whole thing is, it sold me, go in with a co-op partner, go into this weird reality where where American terrorists have taken over these super religious people. They all deserve to die. Shoot them in the face. And then when I shot him in the face, it was really satisfying. Red Dead, it feels like the shooting is the least satisfying part of the game.
Yeah.
But it's a Western.
Yeah. So it kind of gets away with it.
Right, you know what I'm saying? And that's the thing.
Created its own
And
margin
it
for error.
shouldn't. And it shouldn't. Like shooting somebody with a revolver in Destiny and watching their head pop off is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, there's just a snap to it that just feels really good. In Red Dead, it's the most forgettable part of the experience, but the game is so excellent in every other way that it almost has to be game of the year. But for me personally, I'm having an experience where I'm saying this is great, but when I play UFC, there was no this is great, but
You know,
I was just
you
in
know what
MMA
it is.
fantasy world for 5 straight days of playing that game. You know what I'm saying?
You know what it is. It's like watching, like, so say for instance, right? You look at the movies that are generally nominated for Best Picture, right?
Yeah.
And you look at it, you're like, oh, it's Out of Africa, or you
Yeah.
know, or whatever.
Like Moonlight and
You know, you look at a movie, whatever's out, and you look at it from an artistic standpoint. You go, oh, that was, you know, and I'm talking about if you're a well-schooled movie critic that knows how to look at cinematography, knows how to look at, you know, everything, right? And you're like, oh, that was really done. Oh, I see what they did there. That was something different, technically different and artistic that they did with that shot. And it's subtle, but you know how to appreciate that, right? But then you sit down and watch another movie that doesn't do nearly as much innovative from an innovative standpoint. And maybe even there's a couple components of it that you're like, that wasn't too good. But for whatever reason, you enjoyed that movie more than this one that was so technically beautiful. And I think that in a way, that's kind of how Red Dead is. Like you look at Red Dead, and Red Dead is so technically awesome in so many different ways, right? But there's a couple things that are like really like dummy, like dummy enjoyment points, right?
Yeah.
That we like in every game. You know, we like to shoot people.
Yes.
You know, we like to run up and punch people and feel the weight and feel the boom. You know, we like
the satisfaction of it. Yeah.
And that's what gets you to keep doing it. So that's one of the things about like UFC 3 is like when you knock somebody out and you land this huge combination, you're like, oh, because they transfer that energy real.
Yes.
You know? But
you're 100% right.
In Red Dead, the energy isn't always transferred as well as it should be.
I think that's its weakest point. And you make a great point. I remember so when I'm learning the fight system to UFC 3, I didn't play a whole lot of UFC 2, right? I played every UFC game, but UFC 2, I just didn't take to it that much, right? UFC 3, got back into it, really enjoyed it. So you know when you first get the system down and you realize where the spacing is, where you can throw punches, what combos actually work, how to defend on the grappling side. So I'm fighting this, you know, guy who wants to take me down real bad. And you know how they are when they want to take you down real bad.
Right.
And I knock him clean out early in the match. I got up out of my chair and ran around the room like I really did it. Like he was really on the ground.
Right.
I'm like Tito Ortiz. Just
you're like, boom.
Hey, I told you not to do that. I do love Red Dead. I don't want to make it sound like I'm only appreciating Red Dead.
Yeah.
That's not the point we're making.
Yeah.
But Red Dead does not give me that emotional, visceral pop from an action standpoint that other games with those same mechanics, like fist fighting and shooting people, have done. And for me, that's important and not something that people talk about a lot. But it's so good at everything else, I still have to give it Game of the Year.
Yeah, it's still the Game of the Year, but it's the Game of the Year, but it may not be your favorite game.
Yeah,
I would say it. That's
very well said.
I think that's probably the way you have to go look at it. I got something I got to get off my chest, guys, and this is somewhat related to what we generally talk about, but then it's different. If anybody's ever watched Sim Hangout, then they know, they may be familiar with Mazique stories. So this is pretty much one of those types of things. So I want to start off by saying this. Adults, and I'm looking, usually guys, I don't look dead in the camera because I try to look at the person who's talking. So usually, so if Books is talking, his screen is down here, so I'm looking down here or whatever. But I'm looking dead in the camera when I say this. Adults ruin kids' sports.
Uh-oh.
Not kids, adults. So I was coaching my son, right? Coaching my son in basketball. And this particular team that he's on this year is not as talented as some of the teams he's played on before, which is totally fine, right? Totally fine. Because when you coach youth sports, you already know that the talent levels are going to go here and there. You already know that. That's just something that you know coming in, right? The worst part about that is that every parent, not every, 95% of parents think that their child is about 75% better than they actually are. Like almost every single parent. This is just, it's very rare to find a parent that is 100% honest about who their child is as an athlete, no matter what the score, what the sport is, right? So I'm going to tell you guys, it started off, and it always starts subtle, right? So I'm coaching. Now, we only got 7 kids, okay? We only had 7 kids. So I'm coaching, and I'm just to be honest, my son has not been one of the better players on most teams that he's played. I mean, he's been like top 3 on some of the other teams. But this team's not as talented as the others, so he's clearly the best player on the team. Just it's not even really up for debate. It's clear, right? It's not like there's not even like another kid was like, oh, it's kind of close, because really he was put on the wrong team. But he's put on the wrong team because he's new to the school and blah blah blah, right? So I'm coaching the team, and I'm trying to make, one of my objectives is I want to make sure every kid plays. Because no kid wants to just sit, that even though a lot of them, I'm trying to just tell you, if I got to tell you what a 3-point line is, that's generally a bad sign. If I have to tell you where the low block is, that's generally a bad sign. So, but this is what we're dealing with, and it's fine. It's cool. Kids are, like I said, kids are always awesome. They're like almost always awesome. So we're in this game, and the game's super close. This particular game, my kid can't shoot a skittle in the ocean, right? But none of the other kids, they are hitting either, and then that's normal because most of the time they don't make their shots anyway. So the game's super close. And so you only got 2 kids on the bench, right? Because then my team only had 7. So I'm trying to find a way to get these other 2 kids in the game, and clearly they're not of the more talented kids. Trying to get them in the game. They end up getting in the game a little bit late. So here comes one parent. And this is when you always, this sign number 1, if you're a youth coach, sign number 1 that there's a problem coming. Mom walks up to me, hey, my son, I'm not giving his name for a reason. My son wants to know, he thinks you're mad at him. I said, no, why would I be mad at him? I said, everything's cool. Oh, okay. Well, he was just wondering because he didn't get a lot of playing time. So, translation, asking for a friend. Why is my child not playing? That you want to know this. This is not the kid talking. This is you. So I said, no, it's no issue. I said the game was really tight. I try to put the kids in the best situation for them to succeed. That was all it was. That's it. Next game comes. I purposely make sure this kid and a couple other kids play more. Every time this kid gets subbed out, this parent's in the stands going, oh my God, are you serious? Every time the kid gets pulled out of the game. And I don't even turn around. But this is going on behind me. My wife is sitting in the stands. They're talking trash about me and my child in the stands. Literally, adults are doing this, right? So now nobody has come up to me and directly said, hey, there's a problem with the playing time. Nobody said that yet, right? Then somebody goes to whoever the guy is that's over or whatever, and he says, hey, man, you got to work to get the kids in the game. Now, mind you, nobody ever told me that you're supposed to make sure that every kid plays. I'm going to tell you, man, There are kids that are on this team, man, that if I left them in a gym by themselves for an hour, they could not make 20 shots in a gym in there. Dude, we're doing free throw drills. I got kids missing construction 6 out of 10 shots. I'm talking about rim, backboard, the whole thing. You know what? I don't have a problem with that. But I just need for you to understand where we are and what's going on here, right? That's all I want you to know. Understand that. Have you been in the driveway with little Jimmy? And his name's not little Jimmy, but I'm just saying, has you been in the driveway with him? How many shots did he make? Have you asked little Jimmy to dribble? Can little Jimmy dribble? Have you asked little Jimmy what is a basketball? Have you sat down with little Jimmy and watched any basketball? But no, you're going to show up at practice and hand him to me and say, work a miracle and make sure he plays 35 minutes. He don't need a team. He need camp. That's what he needs, camp. So the last game, and I'm going to say the last game because the season was not over, I decided it was going to be the last game. I go to the last game. We're in the game. A mother from one of the other players literally is in the stands heckling my child. Like, you know how when a guy leaves a team early and then when he comes back and plays that team and the fans are mad at him, every time he touches it, they boo? This lady is literally doing this to my 12-year-old. It wasn't a good day.
That's disgusting.
It was terrible. So I say in the middle of the game, every time he gets it, pass the ball, pass the ball. Every time he gets it, this is what she's doing. Loud as day. He hears it. Everybody hears it. So I just say, hey, stop heckling my child from the sidelines. It all goes, the people just start, yeah. So I said, you know what? I'm done. I said, you coach. You come over here and you coach. I'm done. And I walk out of the gym. I get my family and we leave. And I left in the middle of the game. I said, that's it. Dude, no kid ever had an issue. I mean, we had the greatest smoke. Dude, I had just put in plays where all of the plays were video game names. One play was Call of Duty. The other play was Soul Calibur. The next play was Super Smash Brothers. You should have seen their faces. They're like cheesing through the wall. Everybody's so excited. But then we get here around the adults and they're putting their own expectations on the kids. And you always know when a parent has been talking to their kid about you as a coach. The next practice, the kid comes in with an attitude. The practice before that, he was fine. No problems. Next time he comes in asking you adult level questions. So if I were to get 5 points, would that result in me getting approximately 11.2 minutes per game of playing time? What? Tell your mama I said, shut up. Tell your mama I said, go and have 47 seats. Okay. Don't ever, dude. And some guy comes up on the sidelines and tells me, I better not put my kid in the game over some other kid. I said, where were you, big dummy, when they said, who wants to coach? They gave all of you guys an opportunity to coach. But none of y'all said nothing. But then the guy who steps up and says, oh, I'll coach. Then now we have a fleet of kibitzers to sit on the side and throw things. This guy is not a bright fella. He's not a bright fella. This guy emails me, and I've gotten to the point where I don't care. So don't worry about me. The guy emails me over and over all of these, just literally harassing me via email about 12-year-old basketball, man. And then to show you that he's not really like bright, he he's emailing me, man, and he says, just to let you know, this is so and so, not my wife. I'm like, at the top of the email, like, it's clear who the email's from. Like, you're that non-internet savvy that you don't realize that this is what I'm talking about, Books. This is what you deal with when you get into youth sports. The kids are never the problem. It's always the adults. It's always the adult. I got into this because I wanted to coach my son. I wanted to be around. I wanted to help other young kids out. But the parents won't allow you to. And I mean, there's horror stories all over the place about this kind of stuff. I mean, it gets much worse than that. I mean, people have gotten into fights and all that kind of stuff. All that kind of stuff has happened. I chose not to allow it to go there. And I just collected all of my people, which were the only brown people in this particular place. And I said, I know where I'm at. I know if any conflict happens, I know the big 6'5" bald head black man is going to be considered to be in the wrong. He's going to be considered to be the aggressor here. So I'm going to leave because I don't want that smoke. I just had to get that. That was probably the best definition of a rant that we've had since we've been on this show.
That is a true rant.
That was a true rant. It was a true rant. It's just absolutely insane, man. I mean, it's just absolutely insane. Man, we got one lady. This is the parents we're dealing with. They're like in the audience trying to get people to touch boils on their chest. Like, look at this here. This is look at this. It's going on, man. This is what happens in youth sports.
That's grody.
This is what we deal with. This is what we deal with. Dude. I had to go into prayer, just intense, just because that whole thing is just totally insane, man. Like, you would not believe some of the conversations that these adults are having about youth sports. The level of animosity that can like for 12-year-old dude. I have to tell your son that he's allowed to jump.
Although I have to say, I'm surprised that 12-year-olds are that bad, because when I came, maybe it's the New York thing. When I came up, it's 12-year-olds. Ugh, they'd be so good.
No, man. Well, you know what? There are some 12-year-olds that are that good. It's just
not even like pro kids, just like little Spanish kids come off the handball court.
No, man,
tear you up.
I told this kid to stand on the low block. He thought that meant he couldn't move.
Oh man.
So the ball's like rolling past him. He's like, I said, abandon ship. Abandon ship. Get the ball. Get the dog. And then the rebound's coming. And now granted, this is the kid whose father is telling me that who I can't put in the game. Rebounds coming down, but he's standing on the low block. So instead of moving his feet, he goes like this. He's like one of those characters that you remember, like in the old Star Wars toys where they had the little notch and they had to fit in a hole.
Yeah, on the stand. Yeah,
he's just swiveling, man. He's just got. And you know what? Great kid. Anytime you tell him something, hey man, oh yeah, oh no, yes.
Apparently he follows orders.
He does. He follows orders to a T. But his father is insane, totally nuts. And it's just like, dude, this is what do you think we're doing here? Like, for real. It's just insane. So I exited. And yes, I had to. It was just too much. It's just too much.
So you're not coaching anymore?
I am not.
Wow.
I'm not, man. I'm not. Because you know what made me really make the decision though? I made the decision that I wasn't coaching because I started to see how it was affecting my son. He was playing with pressure that didn't have anything to do with just simply trying to win. And when I saw him carrying pressure that was coming from adults, I felt that it was necessary for me to remove that from his life. Because if my 12-year-old is playing a basketball game and there's an adult in a stands heckling him, that's, to me, that's too much.
That is terrible.
That's too much. That's too much. I would never do that. I would never do anything like that to a kid and anything like that. You know, I would never do that, you know. And
what's crazy is they sound like they're on the same team.
They on the same team.
That's crazy. Like
I wouldn't even heckle a kid from the other team.
Right, let alone on your own team. That's
on my own team. But that just shows you that your object. Like one person told me, it was like, well, you know how people are about winning. I said, this was not about winning.
Right.
This was about wanting to see your child do whatever you think your child's able to do. And his whole thing is, yeah, that kid isn't even that good. Why is that your objective? Like, why is that your focus? It was a very frustrating ordeal. It was funny after a while. It was actually pretty, like later on that night.
Pretty funny.
Oh, dude, we laughed so hard at some of the stuff that because just I'm trying to tell you, man, it was insane. It's just some of the stuff that was like, one of the kids whose parent was the most vocal, he can't run up and down the court more than 3 times without literally being in an emergency need of a substitution.
What?
Yes. Like, and he's 12.
That's crazy.
Like, I'm talking about face flush red as my shirt. On about 3 to 4 trips up the floor. He got hit in the nose once. He fell out like it was a sniper in the building. I literally had to go over to him and go, calm down, breathe. And he just kept going. Like he checked for blood like 97 times. I'm like, you're going to create blood from this action here. Yeah. You know, this is what's going to happen. You're going to be bleeding. Dude, like my instructions were, every time you get it, shoot. Because here's the thing. There's a possibility that something good could happen from that. But everything else you might do,
something bad guaranteed to happen.
Bad don't happen. And you know what? Coaching kids that are not that talented is not the problem. That's actually fun, right? Because when they have successes, you're like, oh yeah, like you have all these games within a game, you know, because you're like, oh man, he just did that, and I know him, and that's something that he wasn't able to do before. But that's where your expectations need to be when you know what's happening. And the thing of it is like, people forget, the good kids, they're still 12 too.
Yeah.
And they still want to win too. So should they have to take down what their desires and their wants because your kid's not as good? So like, so my son, a couple other kids, well, one other kid on the team, they actually can make shots regularly. They can run an offense, get good shots, and get shots. Okay, so clearly the offense is going to run through them. Clearly. What are you talking about? Do you know how many balls I have to go get out of the hallway after your kid shot a layup? During practice, where are you? I'm here watching balls fly all over the freaking spot like it's the freaking fireworks show. It's insane. It's just totally insane.
Well, we did a service to the people. It's okay to coach kids, but you can't coach parents.
You cannot coach parents. And if you are a parent and you're listening to this and you have a child in youth sports, unless your child is getting, if physically or verbally or emotionally abused, shut up. Just shut up. I'm saying unless the coach is like doing something to your kid, like yelling at them, berating them, insulting them, any of that stuff, telling them they're not good or something like that, just shut up. Just shut up, because you're not helping anybody. Because and the thing, and now here's another thing. If your kid doesn't love that sport, don't make them play it. Don't make them play it. Don't make your kid play anything that they don't want to do, because you know what? That kid's great at something. It's just not basketball. And that's okay. That's okay. It's okay if that's not what he's good at. There's something that you'll have to stop him from doing because he loves it so much. Your job is to find out what that is, as long as it's legal. You know, but it's like you couldn't play basketball, or either you were good at basketball, and now all of a sudden you want him or her to be good at it too. And it's just not, it might just not be their thing. And stop putting chubby kids on the floor and forcing them to lose weight because they're going to run it off in basketball. If he don't love it, stop making him. And now if he loves it and you're like, hey, you know what? It would be a good idea for you to work out. Let's do it in basketball because you love basketball, right? Well, let's do that. That's different. But if he hates basketball and you're going to lose that weight, you're going to play this basketball, you're making him miserable. You're making everybody on his team miserable. And you're making the coach that has to ask him to run miserable. Don't be selfish. Just shut up. That's all I got. That's all I got. I had to get that off my chest, though.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah. Woo! Trying to tell you, man, it's real, man. I would love to see philosophical, super articulate books talking to these parents. Just for 5 minutes. I would love to see what would have happened if this coach would have approached you on the sidelines and said, listen, buddy, you're not going to put your kid in this game. That's what I said. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice and lower your hand. If you do not do either, I'm going to be forced to thrash you.
Surprisingly, not too far from probably what would happen. I only got 2 modes in anger, and the first one is extreme calm. Extreme calm.
I mean, dude, it was so hilarious. The dude like comes up to my nipple, and he's over there, and he's like, "Listen, buddy." And so I don't know where he got that the 6'5" bald-head black man was the one to pull it with. I don't know where he got that from, but I guess I hadn't shown him Southside Brian. I don't know. I don't know what it was. So I turned and I look at him. I said, "You don't want that problem. I promise you, you don't want that problem. I promise you." And he looked at me, and I guess it clicked back in.
Oh, you know, right. I can lose control of this.
He stepped backwards. Right. And I'm like, this dude is, I said, dude, we talking about 12-year-old basketball, and you are invading a grown man's personal space about 12-year-old basketball. There ain't that much crystal meth in the world. What is going on? It's crazy, man. I gotta go. I gotta go. I appreciate everybody who stayed for this insane rant about child sports. This is what you get at me, bro, every once in a while. But don't be one of those parents.
Hey, saving the world one bad parent at a time.
Don't be one of those parents. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's not a good look. Don't be Roger Clemens. He did the same thing at a baseball game. Attack the coach. Just don't do that. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. Until next time, I appreciate you watching as always. God bless. Peace.
Pocket, I'll be weak. I'm rather unique.